Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Catholic Education Foundation podcast number 6. So excited. We've got 4 guests on this particular podcast. Our first 2 guests are going to be Mr. Matt Ott. Matt is the co-owner of the Louisville-based Air Hydropower and is a member of the Catholic Education Foundation's Board of Directors. And Miss Julie Baum. Julie is the vice president of the foundation and heads up the organization's 2 major fundraising events and oversees the Tuition Assistance Awards to an all-time high 3,400 Catholic school families in need. She's in her 16th year at the foundation. We'll get to that in a second, Julie. But Matt, let's start with you. So Matt, let's talk about your amazing business career. I understand that you started Air Hydropower at the age of 15 as a shipping clerk?
I did. Yeah, it's the American dream come true for me and my family. I started there when I was 15 as a summer job, and they liked what I was doing and asked me if I would be interested in coming in after school.
Okay.
I was at St. X at that time.
All right.
I actually had to get somebody to drive me to work.
Go Tigers.
After school, yes, go Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
And my job was to get there as soon as school was out and pack up the packages that needed to go out for that day. Shipping department.
Right.
Had to be done by 5:30, so UPS and City Delivery Service could get there. Back then, we were a very small company, and so it was easy for me to get it done in less than 2 hours.
So how does that correlate into you becoming a part owner?
Great question. So always have been extremely intrigued with what our company does.
Okay.
We help manufacturing companies stay in business through productivity increases, and everybody's trying to automate today their manufacturing processes. So stayed around the company and was involved in many different parts of the operations of the business, and then had the opportunity in 98 to purchase the business with 2 other individuals, and the rest is history.
Man, that's unbelievable. What a cool story. Starting at the age of 15. Now, it's like you mentioned, it's American dream, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the beauty of the country we live in and the opportunities that we have. Julie, 16th year. That's incredible. Tell us how your career has evolved there at the foundation and how the organization has grown over your tenure.
Oh, thanks, Teague. Yeah, I started off at the foundation by answering an ad in the Record. It was for a part-time administrative position there, and I really wanted to go back to work. I had young children, and I wanted something that was part-time, and I believed in Catholic education, and so it was a great opportunity, and I grew into several roles there. I had a great mentor in Rosemary Bissick-Smith, worked with her for several years, and she kind of helped teach me about event planning and execution, as well as the grants and those types of things. So we worked together for many years, and when Rosemary decided to move on, I thought I would move on as well.
Right.
And Rich Lechleiter was named the president of the foundation, and I had kind of decided I would stay through the Salute to the Game luncheon that year. And during those probably 6 months that he started there, I realized the change that was occurring at the foundation, which was an infusion of fundraising and being able to reach more families, which was really exciting. And we were able to go out and start doing more, talking more about tuition assistance to families that really needed, not just $500 or $1,000, but they might need half of tuition.
Sure.
And so those are people that never thought that they could have the gift of a Catholic education. And we were able to start providing that. And for me personally, that was extremely rewarding. And we just it's kind of evolved ever since.
Right.
The fundraising at the foundation has taken off, and it has allowed us to this year reach the 3,400 kids. So it's been an amazing ride. I kind of started off in an admin role, moved into an events director, senior director, and now vice president, kind of overseeing the operations of the organization. And I absolutely love it. I love coming to work every day. I'm very blessed to have a job that allows me that, and I'm God blessed to do it.
Well, Rich called you the glue, and Rich always talks about how the foundation couldn't be where it was without you. But, another thing I'd like to state is the foundation wouldn't be where it is without him, right? So Rich has really stepped up and changed the entire landscape of what Catholic education looks like in this city.
Sure. And I think that, by allowing more families the opportunity to access a Catholic education is key. We have 10 schools that we fund big dollars into for families there that attend those schools that, it would be a different type of school without those kids there.
Sure.
So that infusion of fundraising is key.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're here to talk about the Catholic Education Foundation's first ever Bourbon Raffle, but we'll get to that in a second. Matt, I have to ask you about your Catholic education background.
Sure.
So you're a Catholic school graduate. What were some of the best parts and your best memories of your Catholic school experience?
Well, St. Martha was where it's all started.
St. Martha, I like it. Okay.
Yeah, and then off from there was St. X, and you don't realize it until later in life, as Julie pointed out, what a true gift a Catholic education is. And I thank my parents all the time for that education. My kids are now thanking me for their Catholic education, but it molds you. I mean, you don't realize it at the time, but, back in the 70s, I was taught by a lot of the nuns, lots of discipline. And then at St. X, I was blessed with the Xavier brothers. And what they're doing is preparing you for life. And they're also trying to help you find your passion in life and where you might want to go.
Sure.
And mine was business. And, when it's all said and done, they helped me get to that path.
Oh, yeah. And molding you as a human being, right? As a good person, as a good Christian.
Yeah.
It's a big piece of it.
Yeah, I think that, today, young folks, particularly in today's society, are so impressionable. And I think that Catholic education is a good way. It takes a village to raise kids. And I think it's a way for them to help make sure they don't go down the wrong path.
Sure. So, Julie, he just mentioned that how much of a gift Catholic education is. I don't know that I realized how much of a gift I had received through Catholic education until the salute dinner. When you hear people get up there and give those testimonials and talk about, this is why I am where I am today, it kind of hit with me, and it was like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I ever would have thought that if it wasn't for that dinner. Julie, you're in the same boat. You're a Catholic school graduate. Let's talk about your experience a little bit.
Yeah, sure. And Matt, I think it's great that your kids are thanking you. Mine are still in that age of trying to get. Well, we're just trying to get out of graduation.
Yes.
So
they're finding their way.
Yeah, but I do. To us, Catholic education was not even a question. That was definitely the way that our children were going to be raised. And, for me, I literally started my life with Catholic education. And I say that because my parents are both teachers and met at St. Rita's school.
Well, there you go.
So they were married at St. Rita.
At St. Rita.
Yes.
Cool.
And then, then I was the oldest, and so I came. So I was certainly a product of Catholic education in that way. And, of course, they had a dedication to Catholic education, and my brothers and I went through St. Raphael. My dad, as horrifying as it was to me, moved to St. Raphael when I was in 6th grade, and I was
to be a teacher.
To be a teacher, and I was able to avoid him until my 8th grade social studies class. He taught me, and so that was, a very unique experience. And honestly, he was a beloved teacher, and I'm so glad. At the time, I was mortified, but I'm so glad now that I had the chance to have Mr. McGivney in a class and understand what other people were talking about when they talk about how great he was. So I love St. Raphael, and I just moved right across the field to Assumption High School. Loved being there because I was out of my dad's realm too. And I absolutely loved Assumption. I kept my friends from St. Raphael, but also made some new friends.
Sure.
That's really where my Respect Life, I joined the Respect Life committee there, and I still to this day through my parish am involved in that. It's definitely a foundation that Assumption started with me. A Christian, a program called ACTS, a Christian through Service, that they still have. I was assigned to a place that worked with, it was like a daytime facility for kids with Down syndrome. Or young adults, really, Down syndrome, autism. And back then, there were different types of names associated with it. And it really opened my eyes. I had not been around anybody like that in my life. And it opened my eyes to the importance and the dignity that everybody in life has. So Assumption was fantastic for me. My closest friends, one of my closest friends I went to St. Raphael with. So it's a lifelong friendship. And my two other closest friends are Assumption grads. And those are my girls. And, I think what Catholic education provides is not just a great academic experience, but also the community.
Oh, yeah.
And what that means. And I still love Assumption to this day. My daughter is a freshman there, and it makes me proud every time I walk in that building that I was able to attend that school and that my daughter is able to continue on that path.
Well, speaking of community, we're going to need this community to rally around this bourbon raffle. And obviously, this thing doesn't happen without you and your wife, Matt. So we're so excited that the Catholic Education Foundation will be launching its first ever online, so I should make sure I should mention that, online bourbon raffle that runs from May 23rd through July 14th. It's very exciting. So, Matt, we understand that this wouldn't have happened without you. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, yeah, great question. So my business partner, who's also Catholic, one of my business partners, and he lives in Henderson, Kentucky, and he's involved down there in the community. And he called me and said, "You want a ticket on a bourbon raffle?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And this was something that he had put together, I believe it was for Habitat for Humanity, and he was talking about the wonderful bourbon that they were going to auction off, and he was telling me how much money they were going to raise through the ticket sales. And I said, "What?"
Yeah, that's a big one too.
Yeah, it's huge. And I thought about it, and then, I pitched it to Julie and Rich, and they thought, wow, maybe so. And then I said, well, let me help with the efforts, my wife and I, and we'll donate the bourbon. So we went on, I had some, and then we went on a collection where a friend of mine was actually going to sell his bourbon collection, and my wife and I purchased it and then donated it back to the foundation.
How cool. Well, and there's some good stuff in there. There's some great Pappy, and a friend of mine works in the bourbon industry, and he was talking about this birthday edition of the Old Forester. He said you can't find anywhere. So there's some really, really great stuff there. Julie, tell us more about the raffle.
Sure. Well, we are so excited about this first time raffle. This is going to be huge for the foundation, and a way to really spread our message to beyond just the Louisville community. One thing that I've learned through this, I'm not a bourbon drinker, so I'm not as familiar with bourbon, but I'm learning that it's throughout the country. This isn't just in Kentucky that people like bourbon. So this is open online to anybody in the U.S. You can get a ticket for $100. We have 5 different lots, so there's 17 different bourbons that you can win through 5 different lots. So we'll draw 5 winners. Tickets are $100 each. 2,500 tickets will be sold. So when we get to 2,500 tickets, we'll close the raffle.
Yep.
We open May 23rd, and if we don't sell 2,500 tickets, we'll close on July 14th.
Okay.
We'll draw on July 15th on our Facebook page at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
Gotcha.
You can get tickets on our website, which is www.ceflou.org.
Awesome. Good job. So she just gave like a professional voice over there, Matt. That was pretty good, right?
I'm impressed.
I'm impressed too. Look, so $100 for the chance to win some of the bourbon that's going to be within this raffle. It's worth the risk. There's so much good stuff there. There's so many collector items. Matt, what did you have that you actually donated? Is this some of the stuff that was kind of like near and dear to you?
Yes and no. Some of it came from actually an auction that I went to and was the highest bidder on some bourbon. We got some good Weller. Yeah. Of course, the Pappy Van Winkle, obviously, which came from Julie and Rich's efforts. That's going to be a phenomenal win for somebody. And we've got some other surprises for the next raffle, I think.
That's right.
The next raffle. So we're already planning number 2.
Yeah, I haven't told them yet. I think that we are going to sell out, and I think that we can do this for the next 2 years, and my personal goal would be to try to get to the $1 million range for the foundation.
Wow.
And Matt's already out looking, and
yes,
many thanks to he and Sherry so much.
Oh, unbelievable.
But he'll send me a text with a picture, and I'm trying to get this one. It's very rare, and so it's a labor of love for him, I know.
Yeah, it is. It's to help the kids. It's all about helping the kids and getting more kids to get into the Catholic education.
Matt, let's end with that. So can you give us a little bit on why Catholic education, other than your personal experience, why you think it's important?
It's important, and Julie brought it up. It's part of this whole community thing that I think comes out of it at the end. So when you graduate and you look at it, and it's prepared you for grade school, prepares you for high school, and high school prepares you for college. But it's this whole community thing where you come back and you've met friends, become lifelong friends, business acquaintances, and it's also part of just our faith. That God has given us this
100%.
100%. Yep. Yeah. So it's a lot of things, but it's really about community.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to have a couple more guests come on to talk more about the raffle. We're really excited. We're going to have Mr. Chris Morris on, who's going to really detail a lot of this bourbon industry and some of the particular bourbons we have in the raffle. But thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for our first segment. In our second segment, this podcast will feature Chris Morris, Master Distiller of Louisville's based Brown-Forman Corporation, along with Catholic Education Foundation President Rich Lechleiter. So we're excited about this one.
We are indeed,
because Chris can give us some awesome information. But Chris, let's start with why we're here. You're a local Catholic school graduate. Tell us about your Catholic school experience.
Well, certainly. Again, it was so important to me to be raised at St. Agnes, and went to a wonderful school there and made some lifelong friends, and from there went to St. X, went to school with Mr. Lechleiter, class of 76.
Okay.
And I have to say that St. X was part of the defining structure that has led me to my life today.
Sure.
And from there to Bellarmine.
Okay.
And here we are today.
So as far as the St. Agnes, and hey, you were Catholic all the way, right? So St. Agnes, St. X, Bellarmine. So, tell us a little bit why the faith-based education is so important.
Well, of course, faith-based education gives you a moral code, ethics, great role models. You're a big family. I mean, going to school at both X and St. Agnes, that class, as large as it was at St. X, for example, was one big family.
Right.
And I think that just espouses the Catholic ethics of the importance of family and God and community.
And community. That's the key, right? Is community. So, Rich, this first ever bourbon raffle is going to be an amazing success. It's already off to a great success. How much of a boost is this to the mission of the foundation?
Oh my gosh, it's huge. Just to give you some sense, if we sell out all the tickets, that would be $250,000 directly to the work of the foundation. And Teague, if you look at the average award that we give a student, I mean, you're talking big numbers here, hundreds and hundreds of kids that would benefit from a Catholic education that wouldn't otherwise do so. So what we're trying to do in our little business, we measure success only one way. Are we helping more kids this year than we ever did before? That's our measure of success.
Sure.
This event is going to be able, I think, to catapult us to do exactly that this fall. So we're super excited about it.
Well, it's off to a raging success, and people love what we're putting together here. Now, Chris, the bourbon craze is all over the world, and we're seeing this more and more and more. Everybody wants to hear from the master distiller at one of these world's largest producers of this great product. Tell us how you got into the business and how your career has evolved here at Brown-Forman.
Well, I guess my career path began in the old-fashioned bourbon way. It's not so much that way today with the explosion of micro-distilleries across the country. I went to work at Brown-Forman because that's where my mother and father worked. And I'm one of 3 generations of my family to have worked at Brown-Forman.
Okay.
So bourbon was in my blood.
Gotcha.
I grew up in a household that a glass of Old Forester was at the dinner table every night.
Yeah.
And that was my mother.
Right.
It was a bourbon household, and going down to the Old Forester Distillery when it used to be at 850 Dixie Highway with Dad on weekends when he was in the office. And I literally played in the distillery like it was a playground. And I was really excited and fortunate to come in and start to work at the Old Forester Distillery and what is now called R&D, Research and Development. It was called the Lab in those days. And I haven't never turned back.
So what does a master distiller do?
Well, that job can vary from distillery to distillery because it's not a defined definition like medical doctor.
Right.
You have to have certain degrees and certifications and internship, et
Sure.
cetera. Every distillery, again, has its own set of rules and regulations. Brown-Forman's, as you can imagine, as the oldest spirits company in America, are quite strict
Sure.
and very programmed.
Sure.
So the master distiller is responsible for the product,
Right.
quality of the product, the flavor profile of the product. And now in this modern world, as you noted, where bourbon is so popular and growing, I'm also the director of innovation. So now I come up with new products across our entire portfolio. And today, one of my key responsibilities is to train the next generation. I'm the 7th master distiller at Brown-Forman in 150 years.
Okay.
And I'm training the 8th in the next generation.
Unbelievable.
That's a great job. Listen, he got one of the coolest jobs in the entire country.
I can't argue with that.
Right?
That's awesome. It really is.
I mean, it really is. It's got to be one of the coolest jobs ever. I mean, if you think about it, so we got the pleasure to shoot in a distillery to shoot this video when we were promoting the Bourbon Raffle. It's just so cool. Just when you're around the environment and the barrels, and it's just what a neat industry.
It really is. And of course, it is interesting how we have gone just a few short years when we, the industry, would be lobbying in the State House to modernize the beverage alcohol laws in Kentucky. And we were treated quite rudely in those days.
Sure.
And you are not a signature industry.
Sure.
Signature industries are coal and tobacco.
Okay.
Look where they are today.
Exactly.
And now we are the signature industry of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Yeah.
And we have now got great friends and advocates in all levels of state government. So we've seen a major change in how we are treated and respected. And the industry deserves that because distillation began when Kentucky began. The first distillation in the state, the Commonwealth, was before we were a state in 1776 at Fort Herod. Kentuckians have been making whiskey longer than Kentucky's been in existence.
Wow.
So that was going to be my next question. How important is the bourbon industry to the state of Kentucky? But it seems like it's vitally important.
Yes. Dr. Steve Coombs, who is now retired economics professor from the University of Louisville, began many years ago, first funded by Brown-Forman, to conduct the first ever economic study of the impact of our industry in the Commonwealth. And that study has become more and more professional. It occurs every 2 years. We use it, of course, to lobby with in state government and with other uses as well.
Sure.
And we are not a major employer in terms of number of people making bourbon, bottling, and warehousing. But because our product is so valuable,
right,
and we export so much of it,
right,
that we turn in tremendous numbers to the state in terms of taxes. We pay our employees very well, so we have a very high state tax, income tax. And then the spread or impact of our business across truckers, of people who print labels, restaurants, hotels. The Kentucky Bourbon Trail is now the number one tourist attraction in Kentucky.
Right.
So we are a major economic engine for the Commonwealth.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. So, Chris, what are some cool facts about Brown-Forman that our listeners would find interesting?
Well, certainly, always proud to say that we're a Louisville hometown company, founded in 1870 down on Main Street, Whiskey Row, across from where the Galt House is now, approximately. And we've been in Louisville ever since, 152 years of continuous operation. And that's what makes our story really fun. We all know about Prohibition and how it decimated our industry, not just in Kentucky, but across the country. And that gave Scotch whiskey a major head start on us on a global basis. No telling where bourbon would be today if Prohibition had not been enacted. But of the hundreds and hundreds of distilleries in the United States at Prohibition, approximately 1,500, every state in the Union, even Utah, had a distillery. 6 were given permits to continue to operate. under a medicinal license provision of
Okay.
the Volstead Act, because still so many consumers believed and doctors believed that whiskey had medicinal properties.
Sure.
You say, that sounds crazy, but we're talking 1920. You still had Civil War veterans
Right.
alive. You had people growing
Yeah.
up before there were. Well, in 1920, there wasn't penicillin.
Right.
Aspirin had just been invented in 1905. It was a different world, and these people thought whiskey was medicine, and the federal government had to recognize that.
Okay.
So of those 6 distilleries, one was Brown-Forman. Of the 6 distilleries, only Brown-Forman still exists.
Wow.
We're the
Wow.
only company still operating that was
That's fascinating.
That's continuous.
continuous
in this business.
since its founding in the 19th century.
Wow,
That's fascinating.
that is awesome.
Wow.
I always thought that bourbon was very medicinal.
Yeah, well, I bet, right? There's a lot of people that do.
I mean, I kind of thought that.
All right, Chris, let's talk about this raffle a little bit. So you've got the different prize lots in front of you.
Yes.
Obviously, we're very excited about our Pappy Van Winkle lot. What are some things that stick out to you there that are exciting for someone who might buy a raffle ticket?
Well, certainly, I've looked at these as we sat down, and these are some exceptional whiskeys grouped together according to a theme. And some of these whiskeys, well, most of these whiskeys are almost impossible to get at retail.
Okay.
They have to start at retail. That's legal.
Sure.
So somebody has purchased them, but they're so hard to get.
Right.
Some of these, like the Van Winkles, you can't get unless you have a lottery ticket to get a chance to buy one.
Oh, okay.
A lottery ticket to get a ticket to have a chance to buy it. That is exclusive.
Wow.
We do that now with lot number 5, Wood Reserve Double Oaked. You can no longer go to the distillery and just buy it. You have to have a lottery to get in to get a bottle. And the same with the Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. These are in such demand, and the interest in these lots should definitely be national as well as global, because most of these whiskeys, even though they're sold across the country, most of them are primarily available only in Kentucky.
Okay.
And if they're that hard to get in Kentucky, that shows you how hard they are to get anywhere else.
Wow. I didn't realize how rare some of that was, Rich. That's pretty exciting.
No, it's. I was talking to a friend of mine in Florida about the raffle, and he said the same thing. We can't find any of this product in Florida. You got a much better shot in Kentucky to find the product.
Chris, what does double oaked mean?
Double oaked is a phrase I actually created back in 2012.
Well, that's pretty cool. Okay.
Now, it didn't seem so cool then. But now everybody goes, that's great.
Awesome.
I was just trying to get something past the trademark.
Okay.
Anyway, so what we do is take fully mature Woodford Reserve. So it's been matured in barrel number 1. We empty that barrel and then put that fully mature Woodford Reserve back in a brand new second barrel.
Right.
So I've doubled the oak exposure. Now, the second barrel is not the same barrel as the first barrel.
Right.
The first barrel is called the Woodford Reserve barrel. It's a unique barrel among all whiskey barrels. It's toasted like a cognac cask
Okay.
for 10 minutes and then charred like a bourbon barrel.
Okay.
The double oaked second barrel is toasted for 40 minutes, 4 times longer than the Woodford barrel, and charred for the briefest amount of time. It's still a brand new barrel, still charred, but it's all about that extremely heavy toast. The Woodford Reserve will stay in the second barrel for a year. That's double oaked. What we have here is a double oaked, which is the rarest of the rare.
Wow.
It's been in the second barrel 2 years,
Okay.
doubling the double oaking.
Wow.
Now, Chris, can you taste that? Do you know, like, so if you're tasting something that's double oaked, does someone that really knows what they're tasting there, can they taste that?
Well, if you need a point of reference, of course. I mean, if you get this bottle of double oaked and you drink it, you're going to go, this tastes tremendous.
Okay.
But you don't know how different it is from double oaked or from Woodford unless you have a sample of those
Right.
as well. So you have to have a reference. So you would start with the standard Woodford bourbon
Okay.
and go, that's great.
Right.
Then you see what putting it in the barrel for the second barrel for an extra year does. Wow. It becomes completely dominated by flavor area we call sweet aromatics. Literally, you think you're drinking butterscotch and toffee bars. It's so dessert-like.
Okay.
It stays in that same barrel for the second year, and you think it's going to be even more sweet. How can it be any more sweet?
Sure.
It gets spicier.
Ah.
It gets spicier. Now, it's still super sweet, but now you get clove and cinnamon and nutmeg, and it's just an extremely complex whiskey. And again, most of these whiskeys are called now by whiskey collectors unicorns.
Okay.
And you know the story of the unicorn.
Oh, yeah.
How they're unique, or I don't know how many unicorns there
Sure.
are in mythology, but to find a unicorn is to find something that is so rare.
Right.
So to get a double oaked or an Old Forester Birthday Bourbon or one of the Van Winkle whiskeys, those are unicorns. They're so hard to find.
All right, is this as fascinating to you as it is
it's
for me,
really
Rich?
cool, and it just speaks to how successful this raffle's going to be because of the product lineup we have, and just for people to know through this podcast how rare this stuff really is. It's going to take off.
So one more question here, Chris, on this prize lot. So the birthday bourbon, the Old Forester Birthday Edition. What's the Birthday Edition mean?
Well, again, Old Forester, Brown-Forman were created by George Garvin Brown.
Okay.
The founder of our company was born on September the 2nd,
Right.
1846. And Old Forester, this is the story of the bourbon industry. By the early 2000s, Old Forester was almost extinct.
Yeah.
It had dropped below 100,000 cases. Most of those were sold in Kentucky
Okay.
and a couple other southern states. And there were some at Brown-Forman even talked about, let's just discontinue it. It's become meaningless. The founding brand of the company.
Wow.
The brand that the Brown family holds so dear. And a couple of us, another St. X grad who is the brand manager, class of 74, Mike Herring, we worked together and we said, we're not going to let this happen. And I came up with some 12-year-old whiskey.
Uh-huh.
Vintage. It was all from a single day, which had never occurred in the history of the bourbon industry in terms of a batch product, and started working on making an annual release
Okay.
on George Garvin Brown's birthday.
Ah, okay.
So we were looking at names like Founders Reserve, Family Reserve, the typical names of whiskey. And I'll never forget when Mike came up and said, we've got the name. I said, what is it? He said, Birthday Bourbon. And to me, birthday means just born.
Yeah.
This is 12-year-old whiskey, just born. And I used a rather colorful word when I said that's the dumbest name
Right.
I've ever heard of. And he said, well, too bad it's been approved. And now it's a legendary brand.
Oh, that's so cool.
So give another St. X grad credit for this wonderful name.
Amen.
And
Amen.
it comes out every September, and it sells out like snapping your fingers.
And how many cases of that roughly would it be a year that you distribute or create?
Yeah, it's very limited, Rich. I remember the first year we had less than 1,000 bottles. Now, it's grown over the time, but it is extremely limited, and we put it on allocation. So New York will get like 60 bottles. Chicago will
The
get
whole
80.
state of New York.
Yes. Chicago, which we consider a state because of distribution network, it gets 80 bottles. So it's spread across the country in very small amounts. So that's how limited it is.
Fascinating. I mean, how cool.
Right here in the Raffle.
How cool is this, Rich? All right. So, Rich, obviously Brown-Forman has been supporting the foundation for many years. Talk to us about that relationship a little bit.
Yeah, they've been a great partner of ours. Teague, thanks for asking. For many years, I'm in my 9th year of the foundation, and they're at their highest giving level in the history of this relationship as we speak. They've done several multi-year commitments to us so that we can continue to say to our families the answer is yes.
Sure.
Some confidence to do that. And we've honored some of their folks at our salute dinner event. Jane Moreau was one of those folks, their retired CFO that was honored a few years ago. And now she's on our board of directors, for example.
Yeah.
We've had Tim Rutledge, John Hayes. We've had a number of executives from the company not only give their treasure, but give their time and serve on this board for many, many years. So we've been very blessed by Brown-Forman for sure.
Fantastic. So, gentlemen, we'll wrap this thing up here. Rich, obviously we need this. We want this raffle to be a raging success. I think with the information that Chris just gave us, I mean, it can only help, right? That's pretty awesome stuff.
Oh, we're excited about it. And again, Chris, thank you so much for being here today. And for
very welcome. And all of you all bid.
Bid, that's right. So at the Catholic Education Foundation?
The answer is yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.